and welcome to the Glacially Musical Podcast. It's beer, metal, and swearing, a Ghost Cult joint production. I am Nick Cameron of Glacially Musical, joined by my good friend, a man who's always strong and ready to take a bite, Keefy Chompers. How we doing today, buddy?
Oh, muted myself. What up, son? How you doing?
I am good. It is Wednesday. It is the YouTube Happy Hour. I am ready to go. If you are here for the first time, thank you for joining us. We are talking to Sean Rayford, who wrote For the Record Photo Zine, which we will get into more and more as time goes on. Here's how we do this. We do a greeting, a beer check, vinyl check, news check, shirt check, meat of the day, which again, Sean Rayford. The Glacially Musical Beer of the Week is Sierra Nevada's Hoptimum, a triple IPA in a bottle, which is unusual for me because I don't like having to get out tools. But envy me, peasants, because I have a magnetic bottle cap opener, so I just put it right on the beer fridge. Did you hear that one? Did you get that?
Heard the pop. That's a sweet bottle opener, sir.
Finger fudge pour right down the middle.
Saved it. There is no Ghost Cult Beer of the Week this week. There's no beer. But I did film a video for that Kitty Pig non-alcoholic beer. And I have another one in the fridge to drink. But today, just Polar Seltzer Cranberry Lime. And cheers to you, sir.
Cheers, cheers. Oh, by the way, this is 11%. So if Nick gets a little loopy, he's sorry, he's not sorry. Moving on to the next department, now that we've gotten the greeting and beer check out of the way. My vinyl check this week, I'm going to go soft because we have a guest and I don't want to keep him waiting. He's a gentleman and a scholar. Number 1, Tremonti, Marching in Time. I loved the first Tremonti record, which is... Tremonti is exactly why I started the Department of Metal Antiquities. He's the exact reason. I hate Creed. I hate Alter Bridge. But I love Tremonti.
You hate Alter Bridge. I can see hating Creed, but Alter Bridge also.
I hate I hate everything.
Kennedy. He's a treasure.
He's a treasure with Slash.
Oh.
He's not a. Yeah. I said what I said. So, Marching in Time. This is a triple-sided LP. It is a gatefold. I will allow it. This is, yeah, it's just black. Nothing interesting there, but it is quite a good record. I remember. And I wrote this in my review of All I Used to Be by Tremonti, when Glacially Musical was just a blog that a guy buying CDs wrote, which that guy is me. I remember seeing Mark Tremonti, the only member of Creed that was interviewed in the Creed Behind the Music, who was not named... What's his nuts? I don't remember his name now. What's that guy's name?
Scott Stapp.
Scott Stapp. Yes, anywho. He was the only guy not named Scott Stapp. And I remember him talking, and Scott Stapp talked about, oh, he's playing these Metallica riffs and this and that. And I'm like, well, where is that? I've never heard it. And then I heard All I Was, and it was all Metallica riffs, that palm muted chug. And I'm like, okay, I get this. I am finally in. I think I only paid like $15 shipped for that. I got it really cheap on Discogs. My next record, my last record of the week, let's see if you know this one. This is probably going to be a future Department of Metal Antiquities record. Arcadia.
Vaguely aware.
Sword the Rose. Okay, and sword is spelled funny. One David Gilmour plays on 2 tracks on this record.
That would be why Nick has it.
Got it for $4. $4 at the Antique Mall in North County. Yes, David Gilmour plays on 2 tracks. It is basically a Duran Duran record with a series of rotating guitarists. So I thought, you know what? I came in today, I wanted to buy something, so I bought that. And I gotta say, don't regret it.
So here's an interesting thing. Like Duran Duran, In Excess, a lot of these 80s bands, were like, brushed off in real time. But like, these were masterful musicians. So, yeah, just shouting that out. I guess it's my turn for a vinyl check, no?
That would be correct.
All right, I have a really fun one today, one I have never checked on anything. I just happened to have it sitting around. So we're going to cut to the chase, no drama, nothing. This is Anitqua, the black metal chamber supergroup. I'm trying to get this into the camera correctly, because I don't know what my orientation is. I'll read it today. Anitqua features members of Nia Blaviscaris from Australia, Blackguard from Quebec / Toronto, Ontario, and Lindsay Schoolcraft, formerly of Cradle of Filth and solo chamber metal artist.
I know her. Who says I don't?
Yeah, she's great. We should have her on as a guest sometime. She's wonderful. This is the limited edition double single. I rarely buy a single on a 12-inch vinyl, but in this case it was worth it because it's the only recorded music they have out. And so they put out a limited number of custom limited edition vinyls. The Funeral Crown was the big single, but it also was backed with Anadam Geyer. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. Don't know about the future prospects for this band to make more music or tour. Very difficult when you have members on 2 continents or 3 continents in some cases. I think Andy from Rivers of Nihil and formerly Black Crown Initiate is also part of this group. So wow. It does come with a inner sleeve with lyrics. So I'm just gonna, I don't think it comes with much else, but it's got this inner sleeve with lyrics. Very nice. One side and one side, with each song on each side. Already in the mylar, already been played. Let's take this fun vinyl out. I don't know what you would call this. Is this sort of like a silvery smoke? What do you call this, Pat?
I would call that metallic silver.
But it's also got like a kind of smoky inner ring, no?
I don't know what to call that. I've got a couple with that, but I wouldn't call it smoky. Smoky implies the fading black swirl, which I've got on a bunch.
I don't know if this is an error. We're kind of missing a label here on the front. This should be side A, and then side B has this distinctive.
That's an error. It's now worth lots of money.
Oh, really? Well, I opened it though.
I mean, according to people who don't know anything about vinyl, yeah, it's worth all the money.
But also, here's a fun bonus that it came with, and this was like, I'm gonna say it was like $30 pre-order plus shipping from Canada to California, so probably $45. But also came with this autographed image of Lindsay, also signed by Zenier from the Oblivious. So really
very cool. Very cool.
Very cool little bonus thing. And thank you, Lindsay. We should have Lindsay on as I'm putting it out in the universe. We're going to tag Lindsay.
We have mentioned it before. We have mentioned her before.
She is a delight. I got to interview her when she was in Cradle. I've interviewed her since she's been out of Cradle, and she is wonderful.
I interviewed her a number of years ago. She was kind enough to do one of my many forum interviews, as Glacially Musical at that point in time was a one-man operation, and my goal was to get out at least 10 articles a week. So there were a lot of forum interviews. But I mean, one of the things I learned is that the quality of the interview is not based on the questions; it's based on the answers. And I can give you the plainest, most boring, nothing burger questions, and how hard you're into it determines how much you're going to get out of it. As for now, with that, we'll segue on into the news section. The first thing is, and I mentioned this before when it was up for pre-order, the Black Sabbath Tony Martin box set is ready to ship. It should be shipping on, I'm hoping I get mine on Friday, but I don't think I'm gonna. And the other bit of information, this is a personal story. The Rolling Stones are presently on tour yet again. Unlike what the manager said in Almost Famous, if you think Mick Jagger is going to be out there shaking his hips and pointing fingers at age 50, you're sorely mistaken, my friend, because he's going to be doing it at age 80. And I saw that the Rolling Stones were playing, or what passes for the Rolling Stones, if you so desire. It's, what is it, 2 members? It's 2 members, right? Keith and Mick, that's all we got left?
I think we've got Keith and Mick left, yeah.
All right, you know what? That's good. 2 members is good enough. 2 members out of 5, that's good enough. Well, I saw they were playing in Branson, Missouri, and I texted Lawyer Wife, and I'm like, isn't this funny? Her response was, we should go see them in Chicago while we're there.
Why are you going to Chicago? You hate Chicago.
I love Chicago.
You said you hate any city you can't drive around in easily.
No, I did not. I hate driving. I love trains.
Fair enough.
There's some confusion. You drink too much, or I'm drinking not enough. One of the two.
I
Anyway, you're muted. I'm going to continue anyway.
I wish I could drink too much. I can't drink too much.
So, my child is coming back on a unaccompanied minor flight. So there is no direct flight from California to St. Louis, we have to meet her in Chicago. So the original plan was we were going to go up a day or two early, have fun, meet her, and then come home on Sunday. And then now we are seeing the Rolling Stones at Soldier Field. So I apologize because I know you asked me to go see Metallica with you at Soldier Field, and I said no, and I wouldn't go to Soldier Field to see a show. But now I'm going to Soldier Field to see a show.
It's the Stones. It's probably the last chance to ever see them. It's fine, bro. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it
fine.
probably-
We saw
it-
them together. I'll treasure the memories forever.
It is definitely the last time. I cannot imagine that they're coming again. Also, Robbie Krieger is performing a show at the City Winery downtown at Midtown in St. Louis, and I considered going until I saw the ticket prices start at $105. And
It's not.
I mean, is it obnoxious? No. However, I have seen him twice. So if this were try one, yeah, I probably would pay it. And that is my news for the week.
All right, we're gonna speed run through this next bit of news. Now, strangely enough, Metallica has kicked off. Speaking of Metallica, because we can't not Metallica.
Speaking of,
Metallica has kicked off their M72 2024 leg of their tour, a very shortened version of the tour they did last year. They're doing something like eight shows or 9 shows in Europe in the next 6 weeks, and then break for a few weeks, and then 2 shows, break, 2 shows, break, 2 shows, break, into North America, limited North American dates, and then Mexico City for 4 shows, 2 weekends. And that's it. They have
is that at
nothing
the
else.
Palacio de Deportes?
Not sure, but it's not announced yet if they're doing anything else this year. I'm going to say signs point to no. They
I
did
would
just
say
play
no.
like a one-off show today in Italy that already just happened tonight, and it was kind of an amalgam of what both their shows would be like. I don't know why they played this one-off show. It was at a festival in Italy, at the Ippodromo Snai La Maura in Milan. So, anyway, but let's just quickly speed run through the set list from the 2 shows last weekend because I think it's important. Show number 1 is very similar to show number 2 that you and I saw. So, obviously, Long Way to the Top on tape, photo montage, Ecstasy of Gold, Good, the Bad, the Ugly, always on tape. Starting with Whiplash, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Of Wolf and Man, first time played on the tour in 2 years. Memory Remains, we saw that. Lux Eterna, we saw that. Too Far Gone, still doing the Kirk and Rob duel I don't need. Fade to Black, Double
No one needs
Horns.
it.
Fade to Black, Shadows Follow, excellent. Orion, you didn't love it, but I loved it. Nothing Else Matters, can live without it, but I understand why. Sad but True, Day That Never Comes, Hardwired, Fuel, Seek and Destroy, Master of Puppets. Not too shabby first day to the tour. Second night of the tour, I guess Nick is holding all comments till after.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's fine. Second night of the tour, Creeping Death, thank you, good night, Keith is all set. Harvester of Sorrow, so this is also very similar to what we saw. Hit the Lights, first time played on tour. Hit the
Very
Lights.
good, classics. A lot of classics, a lot of new business.
Hit the Lights. I like hearing Hit the Lights. I only hear James try to yelp up in key, but I hope
I'm good. I've heard it. I
hope they
think
play it in D.
I think you only need to see Metallica play Hit the Lights once in your life, and you've hit that number. I'm good.
Omar Cut This got to photograph Metallica when they did the Dahan show at Orion Fest Detroit, where they played only Kill 'Em All in the afternoon, unannounced. Anyway, that.
Oh, the one where they were Akalamem or something?
Dahan. Because it was the time of the movie, the dumb 3D movie. Ride the Lightning, 72 Seasons, If Darkness Had a Sun, another dumb doodle by Robin Kirk, no one needs. Welcome Home, Sanitarium, the first ever live debut of Inamorata, the longest song ever by Metallica. This is epic. I wish I had seen it.
How long is it?
It's too long, but it's great. Call of Cthulhu, so I don't know about 2 instrumentals back to back, but alright. No Leaf Clover, still like the track.
That's like 24 minutes of instrumental.
A little bit. To Nick's disappointment, his least favorite song from the Black Album, Wherever I May Roam, is next. Moth into Flame.
You are no. Hey, I love Moth into Flame.
No, you hate Wherever I May Roam.
Yeah, I know. Yes, seriously, hate that song.
Moth into Flame, followed with Fight Fire with Fire, late in the set this time
Ooh,
instead of early.
nice.
Bread Fan.
Bread Fan. I have seen him play it. I saw it on Load. I saw it on Reload. I saw it on Reload.
I love Bread Fan. There was literally a period of time where they did So What or to open, or Bread Fan to either open or close one of those two songs for years.
I used to literally call in the college radio show The Mosh each week to play Bread Fan so I could finally get it on tape so I could hear it. And I kept screwing up and recording and stopping recording when they went into the instrumental section because it was so different than the actual section.
So, listen to this last four songs. Again, really no encore. Fight Fire with Fire, Bread Fan, no notes, perfect. One and Enter Sandman. Holy shit.
Enter Sandman, I can get to the car quick.
I know. Really quick, your brief thoughts on these two set lists in the first two nights. Briefly, 1 minute or less.
Just absolutely love how adventurous Metallica is being with their set lists. I can remember, because I didn't see Metallica until the Load tour. And I remember reading, I can't remember if it was Load or Reload, which one. No, it was Load. Reading an interview with Kirk when they were saying, do you change the set list? And he said, no, we keep it the same every city to keep it fair. So nobody gets upset about what they didn't see. They have completely thrown that away, and they are playing. They basically have rehearsed and are ready to play 3 full 2-hour sets. That is insane. That is like Bruce Springsteen level crazy. And
For a pack of old
love
guys.
it. Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. Keep it up. Do it again. And I will come see you every time you come to town, but I'm going to be honest, I do not see Metallica coming back. I was shocked they came last year. I mean, like, the fact that they came was like, what the fudge? I mean, do you know what you're... But they drew well. They probably pulled 125,000 fans over the course of those 2 nights.
They did set the record for the, whatever, St. Louis Dome.
Biggest concert,
non-sports event.
The actual name of the dome presently is the Dome.
Thank you. No
It
sponsor.
It is the Dome at America's Center.
Dome Depot.
Or the DAC. You can, or when the Battlehawks play, it's the Battle Dome.
All right. Really quick, that's all our news. Shirt check, and then let's bring on a guest.
All right, shirt check for me. New shirt, I love Kitties and Beer, which is on brand for Nick.
It sure is. Kitties and Beer has been a major focal point of this series and this show, and I'm very happy about it.
And it always will be.
And it always will be. I have my second shirt hinted at 3 weeks ago. Moobies, the Golden Calf, making an epic out of simplicity. And just the Moobies. This was literally a $10 shirt on the View Askew store. I could not say no to a $10 shirt in my size. I was not at the Moobies pop-up in New Jersey, but, like, how perfect is this?
We went to the punk rock flea market last weekend, and I spent $40 on this t-shirt. I also got several records which have not been checked and will not be checked for weeks.
Because we're not as professional as we'd like to be, do we want to just bring our guest in and then you'll do the glow-up, or do you want to do the glow-up right now and then we bring the guest in? We didn't plan this very well.
We didn't. Let's bring the guest in first.
All right, I will pause us both. Hold on.
I will get the jacket on. Whoa, hey, we're recording. Everybody, thank you. We are back. We are joined by a man who has written a love note to a place that will splinter you up if you try to sex it up. I don't recommend making love to the stage. We are joined by a wonderful human being, a man who is immortalizing a stage. And every stage in this world is a wonderful and beautiful thing. Very recently, there in the Missouri History Museum, the St. Louis History Museum, there was an event. Damn, what's the word? Keefy, what's the word for a thing at a museum? Exhibit. Thank you. There was an exhibit where you can look at things while you're looking at things. So exhibit will pimp your ride while you're looking at things. But there was an exhibit on Mississippi Nights, one of the greatest concert clubs in the city of St. Louis ever to exist. I was able to take my child there and point out that's my friend Joe's band that I saw at Mississippi Nights. That's the guy you wanted to call Uncle Joe 5 years ago, and she doesn't remember him. But it was still awesome. So Sean Rayford has done this in a way that we can never forget. He did a zine, a photo book. I don't know what phraseology you want to use to describe it. It is right here. I have it. He was awesome enough to email us, contact us, and send us copies. And for that, I will be forever thankful. So we will now bring in the author, the man, the myth, the legend, hero to millions, Sean Rayford. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Awful. I hate everything. I'm
Oh,
great.
come
I'm
on.
great.
I
I'm
don't know.
great.
We're pretty good. I'm a big zine person. You don't
Awesome.
know this, but Ghost Cult started as a. I've been a zine person my whole life. I played in bands before I was a music journalist. I was a writer long before I even played in bands, really.
Can I
Uh,
point
uh,
out that I was published in a zine when I wrote about slingers?
that's pretty great. I don't
I
know
know.
if
I thought it was.
Sean may not know what a slinger is, but I do because I've been to St.
He
Louis.
he. A slinger is a St. Louis breakfast. It is hash browns
Okay.
covered in eggs, covered in chili, covered in hamburger patties, covered in cheese, covered in onions, covered in jalapenos.
Okay.
It's
It's
crazy. It's
only
crazy.
it's only about 2,000 calories.
So there's a place that's next door that used to be next door to the old New Brooklyn, which is the place that I photographed for this zine, and an older bartender there used to have late nights and stay over until the next morning at the club and walk over and get hash browns with basically everything on them. And they became the Hangover Hash Browns, and they were written about in like Country Living magazine or something like that. And it was just a recipe of, that came from the hungover drunk bartender from next door.
The most slingers are sold at about 2:45 a.m.
Okay, sounds about right.
when people can get to the bars so that way it soaks up the booze. The second most sold slinger time probably is about 11 a.m. when people are waking up going, "Oh my God, who are
Sure,
you?"
okay. Yeah,
So
sounds
yes,
sounds
it
like
is
similar things.
it is hangover slash drunk food. If you ever make your way up to DC, there is one diner in DC that I don't remember the name of, and I've been there twice since I've learned this, and I haven't gone, that serves a St. Louis style slinger.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm not helpful because I don't know the name. I
All right,
apologize.
fair enough. I'll jump in and say again. So our like my Nick was a food blogger. Also, if you couldn't tell, we have begun this podcast for many episodes now. I have had probably 1,000 other podcasts for my other things, and
Pushing
go
200 episodes here.
pushing 200 episodes. We should do a big blowout for 200. And so
Oh, we
Ghost
will.
Cult, which I inherited, I joined, in its nascency. Started as a web zine in the spirit of zines 12 years ago in the Netherlands to cover like avant-garde underground music, mostly metal and punk, and a little bit of other stuff. And I came in, I had like a more commercial generalist. When you're a music journalist, you become a generalist, whether you want to or not, unless you're just one of those people just like, I don't like anything but what I like. We're not that. So I love zines. I still buy them. My local record store, that's a cooperative record store where the money goes right back into the place and the employees all split the profits. I still buy zines. I go to my local comic shop. I buy zines at random. One of our contributors who does some of our voiceover work makes zines. So we're zine people. And so when your email reached me via Nick, I was like, yes, absolutely, 100%. And I don't want to mischaracterize you. I feel like you're a photographer first, but naturally, as a photographer, you end up writing a little sometimes as you cover
Sure.
events and you curate what you do. So let's talk about how you got started and
Yeah,
doing that first.
this is pretty funny actually. So, in high school, I joined the high school newspaper, and then at one point there was a concert. I lived in between Baltimore and DC in Carroll County, kind of in the country, but the big radio station at the time was WHFS. And this would have been the late 90s, like 97. Um, and there was a concert at the bottom of the ski resort that my brother was a snowboard instructor at. and it was called the HF Eskimo Snow Job.
This
And
story is getting better and better. I'm loving these details. Please continue.
so it was, and I'm not sure about the order of the bands that day, but I would have been 17, would have been Jimmy's Chicken Shack, right before they signed with Elton John's record label, um, and the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
That has got to be the first time the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and Elton John have been uttered in the same breath on this podcast.
Local H,
Saw them open for Metallica.
and the Bloodhound Gang.
Oh my God.
And-
Hey, that is one of my karaoke jams. The Bad
Okay.
Touch. I
Sure,
can rock
yeah.
that shiz.
I have
And
done
s-
High by Jimmy's Chicken Shack at karaoke too, by the way.
Okay, yeah, yeah. That's
It was
funny.
a 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, they had MTV Glory in regular rotation, even, like Local H. That's a very eclectic show. Oh my God. It's
See,
crazy.
I first heard about Local H and Guitar World in like 1995 because they had a record a record label showcase and their bass player quit. I'm like, I don't know if that's the time you're a bass player to quit a band, but you know what? You do you. You're gonna maybe you got an acoustic guitar and you want to sing all your old songs again. Terribly.
I mean,
Let us let Sean continue.
that dude still put out music. I've
Yeah,
seen them. I keep seeing them probably every
yeah.
2 years.
They're
Local
around. They're
H.
still around. They got a different drummer, but basically it's the same main guy. He flamed me on he got in my ass on Twitter for some reason once. He didn't like some comment I made. I love the band, but he didn't like some comment I made. It was like, oh, something about the Guardians of the Galaxy movie soundtracks were inspired by the Local H had done like a mixtape, an actual tape, and then they had a
Mhm.
CD cover that looked like a cassette tape that was like with a
Mhm.
handwritten Sharpie label. So James Gunn, who the music is very diegetic to the story of Guardians of the Galaxy if you watch those movies. And so the Local H guy took umbrage. He's like, well, that was my idea first. And it's like, you're not the first person ever to write on a tape in Sharpie, bro. Like, you just made it an album cover. And it probably wasn't even him personally that chose the album cover. They were on a major label. They have art directors and things. But anyway, so you start in high school. And
Yeah.
what made you pick up a camera? Was it music? Was it just you wanted to take photos? What was it? I'm curious about like how your brain works.
Um, I mean, early on, it's just like, oh, look I think everyone kind of, you pick up a camera at first and you're intrigued by it. So early on, it was probably just like anybody else that picks up a camera for the first time. And then going into working at the school newspaper, um, I I ended up emailing the bass player of the Bloodhound Gang at that time, and he was just like, I mean, that's how it worked at that time. You sent an email and ended up going to the bass player.
At that point in
Um,
time, though, I mean, nobody had email. We're talking like 1997. So if you sent an email to a band,
yeah, I guess
someone in the band would have gotten it. Probably the bass player, because what else is he doing?
His name was Lupus.
Lupus. Nice.
But he set me up with their manager. Manager told me to meet them in the hotel lobby at like 9 a.m. that day of the festival. I showed up there and they were like, meet at the bus at 11 a.m. And so I went and snowboarded for a couple hours and then met them on the bus. And then basically just hung out with them all day on the bus, talked with them and recording them. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I was in the right spot, at least for, being a newspaper person.
I
And
would have to imagine that that conversation was just absolutely insane.
at one point, sorry, I said it wrong. Lupus was a guitar player because the bass player is Evil Jared Hasselhoff, who's like a
Thank you,
professional.
because this is a metal podcast, and all of a sudden, about 80 dudes got their actually boners on the moment you got it wrong, and they're screaming at their phones.
And his like a professional wrestler in Germany now.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the bass player from the Bloodhound Gang, like they got really popular in Germany with their music. And so I think a lot of them kind of fell in love with, the country.
So he becomes a
Specifically.
professional wrestler to stay in Germany. That is my favorite thing I have ever heard.
But they were super nice to me. I was 17. I ended up like tagging around with them, ended up backstage somewhere, but I didn't have a pass to get around. So they just left me backstage and they're like, we'll be back to get you. And I was like, all right, cool. Cause I was going to photograph their set. And then Jimmy Haha from Jimmy's Chicken Shack walked in, and me and him were the only people in the room. And I told him my story, and he was like, oh, I got an extra pass. So he gave me an extra pass, and then I hunted down the dudes in the Bloodhound Gang, and then just hung out with them the rest of the day. And they played a show in Baltimore the next night. And one of the roadies was like, hey, ask Brett if he'll put you on the guest list for tomorrow night. And I was like, all right, that's a thing. Like, I can do that. And
Uh,
so like
I'm
I
sorry.
learned
Let
I
me
learned it
jump
all
in.
right there.
My favorite thing in the world was the first time I was able to walk into a club and say, "Hi, I'm Nick Cameron. I'm on the list."
It's
And
a
my
funny
best
thing.
friend Kevin, without missing a beat, goes, "I'm +1."
The
That's
issue is
awesome.
that simple. As a person that arranges coverage for people all over the world, it's a pain in the ass. It's almost like I almost wish I wasn't on the list sometimes because, and like when I get into shows free, I try to buy merch or we'll buy vinyls or whatever because like I feel like
Absolutely the same.
the bands need money and me getting in is a luxury for me so I can do what I do. I'm sure you feel the same way if you get a photo pass now. I've managed to make like 20 years of relationships with publicists and labels, but I still feel like it's a gift, and I feel like I was in a band and we made no money, even except when we sold our albums, and I always try to buy something from the bands if I get it free, but. Man, that's like a very inauspicious beginning. But here you are. You've been doing this a long time. You have a really cool. That's a really great backstory. You have a really cool, like body of work, and you documented in this zine at the new Brooklyn Tavern. I was trying to figure out which one it is, but like this beautiful photo zine, right? Primarily, and it's a lot of underground bands people would know if they follow what we do. Terror, who's a hardcore band I love, and Senses Fail, huge fan, and especially the drummer Chris Hornbook, who's been a friend to my website, but done some content with us in the past and interviews. But yeah, man, it seems like you have a real passion, especially for this zine, centric to this zine, that you have a real passion for capturing underground music. And that's really important to me still. As big as we cover the biggest bands in the world, Nick and I, right before you joined, we were talking about Metallica kicking off their world tour in Europe, but also, like, we also still like underground local bands, too.
Love them. Check your mic, Keefy. That's you, Sean. You talk.
Go ahead, John.
What now? Sorry.
Saying that you seem to, you have a passion for covering underground music
Hmm.
specifically with this zine. So talk a little bit about the genesis
Yeah.
of making this zine, because I'm
Yeah.
curious about
So
it.
so the venue that I photographed here, I worked at as a bartender for probably 10, 11, 12 years, and worked the door and other areas of the club, the kitchen and other spots. I probably did every job at the club at one point. And so I spent probably 14 years working there. And so, the it's a it's the capital of South Carolina, so it's a good sized city, but it's also, like a big town. So it's easy to get to know people really well. The music community, isn't giant. Everybody, gets to know each other pretty well, and it became the central spot for any kind of original music in town or in the region. If you were wanting to, go on weekend tours, or if you were a band on a punk rock or a metal label, it became like a staple spot in between, your trips up and down the East Coast on 95. We're located in between Charlotte and Atlanta. So you kind of got that traffic. And then also it was kind of the most consistent spot for such a long time there, that you also had really large acts that would really surprise you come through there, like LFO, Two Live Crew, KRS-One, and the capacity of the club's like 300, so it's really intimate, and You know, the the ability to, and there's no green room. There's never a green room. So if a band came in and played and they didn't want to sit in their van, they had to come in and sit at the bar. That meant
That
that they had to
sounds
sit.
like what Red Flag used to be when it was called Foo Bar, because they would just
Okay.
you walk in off your bus and onto the stage, and your guitars were set up in the foyer. So door opens, there's the guy taking tickets. There's the hallway into the stage, and when I say hallway into the stage, I mean you walk there and there's the stage. When I covered when I covered Marty Friedman there, I'm like walking out because I always leave early because I'm old as hell, and I'm like walking out and I see 8 of his guitars lined up, and I think, how far away is the Prius?
We're not going to steal Marty Friedman's guitars.
I stole none of Marty Friedman's guitars, but it's like that episode of The Simpsons when he's got the gun. What would it be like if I robbed the Quickie Mart? Oh, I'll do it next time. That's how I felt. I'll get it next time.
I just talked to Marty. He's a delight. Sean, I do
He is
want
a
to.
wonderful delight. Yes.
He is a delight. Sean, I want to say like what I know about South Carolina, I can fit into Nick's bottle, beer bottle cap. So I'm
Okay.
going to admit that I know Ground Zero in Spartanburg,
Sure.
and I
Yeah.
know House of Blues in Myrtle Beach,
Mm-hmm.
if it's still there. And I don't know anything else about the state, but I do
Sure.
know that it is equidistant to Atlanta and Charlotte because I've been to both and had a bestie of mine come in from Spartanburg to Charlotte or Atlanta. So for different things, weirdly, and just a coincidence. And I do love the Southeast. I almost moved there. Fantastic music scene, very underrated, and the fans. Like if you like, I don't know if people know this. Like so, for your A markets, your big city highfalutin things, those shows are always on a weeknight mostly because they know people will come out anyway on a Tuesday in Los Angeles, probably to see a band at 9 o'clock, or San Francisco, or New York, or Chicago. But actually, your smaller markets actually usually get the Friday and Saturday shows because they know the working class folks for punk or metal cannot come out unless it's a Friday or Saturday. So they try to make those weekend shows the smaller market shows on a bigger tour. And
Well, then
so
St. Louis must be an A market because I've never seen a metal show on a Friday or a Saturday. God damn it, anyway.
I know, well, that's not true because we saw Metallica on Friday and Sunday. But okay,
No, okay, that's Metallica. That doesn't count. They were only playing Friday and Sundays. That doesn't count.
I'm just making a pun.
You just want to be contrarian to me because that's how I roll to you.
Sometimes, but Sean is here, and let's put our best foot forward for Sean.
I'm sorry. I love Keefy. I don't hate him at all.
Don't the parents shouldn't fight in front of the kid. You know how it is. Anyhow,
Wow.
so, like, do you have like a favorite, like one shot that you ever got, or one band that you ever shot that like the work after? Because you shoot in, like I said, this small club for this zine. I imagine for music, smaller venues, low light. So I used to do a lot of photography, and I was very self-hate, much like my music career, very unfulfilled and very full of self-hatred and very critical. A lot of low light, a lot of bad. When I didn't know what I was doing, shooting in JPEG instead of RAW. Now I would be better today, but I don't have the patience and I'm too busy. But like for you, I know there's a lot of inherent challenges in shooting bands, like especially active bands who are jumping around and jumping in the crowd and being crazy. But do you have like a shot or a show in particular that stands out as so far in your life your favorite thing you've ever done?
I mean, they probably don't necessarily intersect, but I can talk about a few. So there was actually I'll just think of things off of my head. Might not be the best, but I used to go to an event in Louisville a few times. It was called Crazy Fest. It was put on by Equal Vision and Initial Records, and it was the last year that they did it. They had a hiatus, and then they brought it back for 1 year. And Bane had played that Friday, and they ended up sticking around the whole weekend. And we had kind of made friends in the past at the club, so we kind of knew each other. But they played during the day, and then they ended up at a house show. It's just a hardcore house show. It was the Chestnut Street house show. And the band that played before them had never played a show before, and then they just grabbed their equipment and started walking in the front door, and one of the dudes was just like, so do we just like set up and play? And my roommate who was with us just like, I don't think anyone's gonna stop you. And so they just set up and played. And like I thought that people, there was like a bay window behind the drummer, and I thought that when they played that the crowd was just gonna surge and push the band out. It didn't happen, but there was this dude who was standing on the top of a door frame to start the show. You know how those shows are. It's crowded.
Hang
Everyone
on,
does.
hang on. I'm gonna need you to explain standing on a door frame because I'm
Sure.
picturing something, and what I'm picturing is a crab dangle between the top of a door frame and a ceiling. So please elaborate.
So his like army dude, I come to learn, so it's like
Oh
athletic.
God.
Um or it may have been Air Force or Marines. I think it
Let's
was a
just let's
helicopter.
just go with the let's just go with
I
the
think it was a
military.
helicopter pilot
So
actually.
so it was not a Space Force gentleman
I'm not sure.
because maybe he had just gotten back from Space Force training. I don't know.
But so I guess he was preparing to do what he ended up doing, but no one else realized what he was about to do. But his spot was on top of the door frame. So the door was open, um, and he was just standing on top of not on top of the door frame, on top of the door. Does that make sense?
This is
The
getting weirder
the
and
door was
weirder.
open into the room that they were playing, and he was standing on top of the door. The little teeny, like if you were standing on like a little board. All right, so he's above everybody else, and they start playing, and he ends up getting naked, and then
Wow.
and
When I don't think it could take another turn, here we
and then
go.
and then he jumps on everyone, and
Well
um,
naked. I mean, I think that's assault, but continue.
I'll go grab the photo.
Please
I
do
have,
not.
but and so his crowd surfing at this house show, completely naked. And the people in front of him don't know what's happening, but the people to the side and behind do. So there's different reactions going on in the crowd in this little house show, based upon whether you see the naked guy crowd surfing or you're, you know, rocking out to to Bane in someone's living room.
You know, Bane
So
is a band. I have given them some grief for retiring and unretiring many times since their final show ever. I got punched in the face at a Bane show. I'm not classically a hardcore kid, but I do love hardcore bands and people from my upbringing. And I don't get near the Bane pit unless you're tough enough. I'm not tough enough. I'm too old and soft, and I definitely took either a forearm or a punch to the face, and it was not good. But yeah, that's great. Yeah, like these seem, like I always felt like hardcore is really the music you need to see in person the most.
yeah,
Besides some
it's
crossover
it's
thrash, like it's
it's
so
it's
immediate.
something else. It's something else. And then the next night they played at a strip club down the street, and it was them with End of a Year, which is Drug Church, basically, I guess. And but on the marquee of the strip club, it was Dane with a D. So it's known as, everyone kind of knows it as the infamous Dane show, at like, I think it was called like Island Playground or something like that. I walked in and it was so crowded. Uh, I saw one of the dudes in the band, said hello, and immediately walked back, and we went back to our hotel room.
That's amazing. I just saw Drug Church actually about 2 months ago exactly, open for Alkaline Trio. I was like, how is this
Okay.
happening? How is Drug Church opening Epitaph, right? And Pure Noise Records and all the crossover
Drug
and
Church
things.
played that Crazy Fest.
Yeah,
Well,
they played that Crazy Fresh. They're great, and I saw
or
uh
sorry.
so, yeah, before that the singer had Self Defense Family, who I
Yes,
was
that was
a,
it.
a
Sorry.
huge fan of. No, it's cool. Like I knew what you meant. And Drug Church is amazing. And Yeah, it's great. Like, and have you shot? Irrespective of your zine, I'll keep holding it up for everybody, because we're gonna plug it hard in the description for everybody and talk about your website and other stuff in a second. Have you shot any other bigger shows? Or you just don't have interest. You rather just do the small
Um,
intimate ones.
so once I got to college, I went to the University of South Carolina here in Columbia, and I worked at the college newspaper. And that fall, I photographed Prince and Aerosmith, Elton John, and so all through college, I had access to any of the big arena shows at the college, so I got like a fair share. And then did an internship at the daily newspaper in town. So, and then I freelanced with them. So at some point that included like Taylor Swift. Uh, so
Tay
you know,
Tay.
it's I haven't shot any huge shows in a while. That doesn't interest me as much. I live in an area where there's like not really a way to make money consistently with that. So it's just a huge amount of work for, not bunch of return if you're doing it as a career.
That
But
sounds like
if
us.
it's just like a passion thing that it doesn't take a lot of work, and when I say a lot of work, I mean like jumping through the hoops to get it done when it's like the club that I worked at in the town that I know and I can walk in the back door
Fair
and
enough.
make the photos and nobody asks me any questions. They just say hello. It's that ease, that barrier of having access to a place like that. And any like decent, I think, long-term photo project, the photographer has some type of access that's beyond what anyone normally has. And so, that's just so much more rewarding, and the type of photos that you can make and the relationships that you build with those people. So,
Right on. Just because I'm going to let Nick jump in a second, but I have to ask because we also deal with some bigger acts. If you shot Prince, by the way, no big deal. Prince, Elton John, Aerosmith, Taylor Swift, no big deal. But
Nobody's.
nobody of consequence. Yikes! But like, did you have any really terrible photo releases? I'm thinking especially
oh, the
Taylor
print,
and Prince.
the Prince, that would have been 97. And at that time he was just the sign. So
How, how did you describe it? Oh wait, I forgot. It was the artist formerly
yes,
known as
yes, it was
Prince.
art. They had the sign
God,
and
that is the weirdest
I
time
have
of
it.
the ever.
I conceivably could go get it. But it was it was the first time, I think. To me it meant nothing really because I was 18. I had been photographing a few big shows. Like, I don't sure, like I'm photographing Prince, like I'm gonna sign whatever I have to like and it said like um perpetuity and universe, and like all of the photographers were like, what the fuck is this shit, like what is going on? And they were just like, oh well, I guess we gotta sign it. And I was like, okay, cool. Like um so I guess I got kind of introduced to that from the beginning, but it still didn't really like mean anything to me because I was just I was so busy at that point in my life running around photographing every major sports event at the school. I was, I guess, effectively my second semester in college, I was photo editor at the school newspaper. So, and the first semester I was taking whatever I could get, because I was like, this is great. Like, I've got amazing access to these events, whether it's basketball games. At that time, we had a really, really good men's basketball team, like two in the country when I was in school. They kept losing in the first rounds of the tournament. And then SEC football, 80,000 people in a stadium. I had never
That's
been to
insane to me, just for the record. That is insane to me.
I'd never been to a college football game in my life. I grew up in Maryland. Like, no one really cares that much. From where I was around, everyone cared about the Baltimore Colts that didn't exist anymore. But I shot my first football game because the editor, hey, you want to shoot a football game? And I was like, sure. And I walked out on the field, and I mean, it was it was a really intense experience. And then also too, you got to like run up and down the sidelines to like get in the right spot. So like it
That
was like very physical and the crowd screaming and you felt like, this really surreal part of the action. And there was a movie called The Program, old
I've
football
seen
movie.
that.
It was filmed at Williams-Brice Stadium, which is the very stadium that I'm speaking about that seats 80,000. And like my senior year in college, my junior and senior year, we won one game. And I think my senior year, we were ranked 13th nationally in attendance. So like we sucked and we were horrible. That was like the crossover when they first hired Lou Holtz. Um, but yeah, so there was like I was super super busy with just photographing like everything going on around in a capital city in the South, and that involved like the Confederate flag coming off the State House and being put down on a pole in front, which is now since been removed. So it's we're a presidential primary state, so every 4 years presidential candidates come and flock through here.
That's the one thing I'm glad I don't have. I don't need that.
It's an interesting and very educational experience.
Your
I'm
description
appreciative of
of
it.
the sports stuff. One of the things that Keefy doesn't know is I was a soccer blogger for a few years as well. And it just every now and again it'd be like, oh, we now have press passes to SLU games, which is St. Louis University. And I'm like,
Oh,
well,
okay.
I don't like college soccer, but I can get free soda and pizza, so I'm gonna go.
Before I was,
Eventually,
yeah, before I was a music journalist, I also did sports writing and things like that. But the band stuff was calling me back without getting in a band.
same for me. Same for me.
Yeah, I did sport an unironic Cox hat at one point for South Carolina. So yeah, I'm
Wow.
not gonna lie, not gonna lie. But
You should.
it's
You
a great,
should.
it's a great white hat with just Cox in red. It's perfect. No
It is
notes.
not.
And they've had some occasional big time players and whatnot. But yeah, man, like I'm also fascinated that so again, we'll link everything in the description. People can check out your website at Soda Citizen. You have socials.
Pardon. May I ask a question? I've had a
Go ahead.
question burning in my belly.
Well, come with it, bro.
I'm trying. You're trying to wrap it up, and I haven't got my question in.
Doesn't
I had
matter.
one question. That's all I got this week. I got one question. So, your love letter to a venue, the venue that you worked at, the venue that you spent so much time in, was there a moment where you fell in love? Because when I mentioned Mississippi Nights earlier, the first concert I ever went there was Frente, and I'm not a big fan of Frente by any stretch of the imagination. You and me, labor of love, whatever, lovely, great, I'm happy. You did a Dolly Parton song, whatever. But when I went there, it was 1994. I'm 18. I had just graduated high school, and I'm at my first real club experience on my own. I drove my own car there to basically the banks of the Mississippi River, and I waited in line for 2 or 3 hours. And this is a time when Frente is everywhere on MTV, and knowing I'm going to be seeing this thing that's in the nouveau of society, where months after Kurt Cobain's suicide, 1057 The Point, the newest radio station, hands me a keychain with a condom in it. And I end up seeing a band called The Finns the next week because I got free tickets for that show next week, and I'm still friends with the singer to this day, 30 years later. What was the moment for you when Brooklyn became your home, became the place you just wanted to be at?
Um, Probably there wasn't a particular moment, but if there was a time frame, it was um immediately after I graduated from college, and a lot of my college friends started like migrating onto their career paths and out of town, going to grad school, just leaving town and doing other things. And so it kind of put me in a position where a a lot of the people that I had been hanging out with were just kind of leaving, but I had done college radio, and so that kind of like became like the new place for me to go and hang out with like-minded people, and find new people that had the same passion for music, um, and come to find out a lot of the other types of things, in the arts. So it would be right after college graduation, which was 2001, um, and then probably that is it's such a long period to have spent at a place, more than a dozen years, that picking also to like a moment or a particular period is tough. Um, there was I remember Thursday played, with Murder by Death. Rival Schools was supposed to play. They didn't play that day, but we interviewed Jeff Rickley for a zine that I was doing at the time, and Jeff was adamant that we checked out the first band, Murder by Death. They had one record out at the time, and of course we're like, all right, yeah, like Jeff, sure, yeah, Jeff says it. We're gonna we're gonna check that band out, definitely. You know what? We'll do a story about them. We don't even know what they sound like. Hook us up, we'll interview them, and that's what we did. Like we
Beautiful.
and heard them play, and I made photographs, and then they ended up spending the night at my place. Um, and if I remember correctly, it was a very, very, very late night for everyone at the club, and New Brooklyn was notorious for that. South Carolina laws allow places to stay open ridiculously late. In fact, you could probably stay open, and up until recently, you could do this in all of the city, but you could stay open 24 hours except for like Sunday. Um, so New Brooklyn at one point was also like an after hours bar. So service industry people who might not have been able to make the show, would come out because their friends would be still out there. Their friends would, like, the lights didn't come on and people were chased out. Like, it's a place that people hung out afterwards, including the band, who might be staying out in the van in the parking lot behind, or trying to find a couch or a floor to sleep on, like was the case, with me. And so like that show, I became friends with those guys in Murder by Death, and they're still putting out music and records, and they're awesome people, and I'm so glad to have met them, and formed a relationship with people who don't live in my town, who like I said, you share kind of a similar outlook on life and art, and it's cool to have those relationships. I can't tell you that much about like what songs anyone played, or like anything like that, but in terms of the relationships, that's probably what it was mainly about, in
Right
terms
on.
of
No, that's
cementing it as a place, as a home.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thursday, great band. Murder by Death, great band. Did you ever get to see Rival Schools after all? Did they come back?
No.
Oh no.
No, I will.
Were they
They're
named
coming
after
back.
Were they named
Putting
after the
up better
Capcom
music
video
now.
game?
Yes.
Neat.
Rival Schools, divided by fate or united by fate. It's
Rival
Welsh
Schools
Rifles.
Part 2. You ought to
Yeah,
buy.
that's
I
it.
forget the rest of the lyrics.
Yeah, it's Welsh Rifles from Gorilla Biscuits and Quicksand, who I like. He's my personal musical genius, and Jesus, actually. So I'm not wrapping it up, but I did want to ask two other questions, and then Nick can have the floor before we let you go and have your evening back.
I got my question. in.
I was gonna say, what year did you transition? You must have started shooting on film, and then you at some point went to
Sure,
digital.
yeah.
So when was that for you?
All through college, was film. The college newspaper was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if it was a football game, I could shoot it Saturday, and I'd have Sunday to process it and get it into the computer. Basketball games on like Sunday nights, I would have to like rush back to campus and go in and process the film. And you would just process the film. You wouldn't make any prints, and then you would scan the film into a film scanner, and then you would get it into your Express or whatever program they were using. And then um, when I did when I started freelancing at the daily local paper, I was still shooting film. And when I interned there after college because the photo editor at the time was like, hey, you've been interning here for like a year and a half, you know the city. I'm happy with like what you're doing with us. Have you done an internship? And I was like, no. And he said, well, you want to do one this summer? And I said, all right, cool. It was just like so much easier for everyone involved, and like it worked out really well for me. But still at that point, I was consistently shooting film, but every once in a while I got to start borrowing a Nikon D1, which was this big, heavy, giant, ridiculous camera, but it was awesome. It was so cool. It was so awesome. If you shot over like ISO 1600, it looked like hell. It looked like it looked like someone was tearing the photo apart. Like, like paper was being ripped. The quality of that was really so hard to use in the low light scenarios. I shot flash at that time in both on film and with the early digital, typically on like a sync cord, so I could get the flash not so direct. And then, man, I don't know when I made like a final switch over to digital, but that must have been around like 2003, 2004 or something like that. And then, whenever I was shooting film back then, all I could do was think about how great it would be if I didn't have to process any more film. Because, some people like to be in a dark room, some people like the chemicals and like the physical process of doing that. And, like maybe you put in your tunes and you listen to your tunes, but I want to get out in the world and experience the things up close and make those photos. I don't want to be by myself. Most of the time, I don't want to be by myself in a room processing film. I don't mind being by myself, but I don't want to be. I don't want to be processing film.
No, we just exchanged the processing lab for the dark room for Photoshop and Lightroom, which is crazy that we have these tools. But yeah, that's the worst part of it is the editing for me. Absolutely 100% no thank you. But yeah, and then I was gonna say I was asking the question earlier, which is so like between shooting, you have this real journalistic eye when you're doing events, and I've seen a lot of your political coverage and other things, events and parades and things. You have a real journalistic eye, but then obviously you were sort of trained in this other arena that is really cool. So what are the biggest differences in shooting the two different kinds of things?
I mean, the main thing is there's a lot of times very little light to work with, especially in these smaller clubs. And the lights have changed with technology as the cameras have. So the techniques that I've had to use over the years have changed, and it's been tough to be like, oh shit, it's the light technology that's changing, not the camera technology and like identifying which thing is doing which. And so like that was kind of complicated. I'm glad that that's over with now, at least for me in my head. What was I talking?
I'm just talking about the differences between shooting events and then a concert in low light in a club versus a beautiful daylight. You shot President Biden. Mm-hmm. I love some of the protest stuff you shot. That was very meaningful just to me personally. I feel like you don't have a bias with your eye and your camera, but you'll capture everything when necessary, which I really like about it. That's what a real journalist is, by the way. A real photojournalist takes themselves out of the picture and is all about the picture, if I could say that correctly.
Sure. And so I guess, like I said, the main difference is just probably just a really challenging scenario of lights. And not only like on stage is it difficult and challenging at times, but on small stages, there's no space. And um that's a tool that I often it's the like biggest tool that I use as a photographer is the space and like layers. And I don't want to go too far into it, but like that doesn't exist on the small stages, and there's like less lights to backlight people because there's just less lights and the angles aren't there. And so it's just a really completely different challenging experience. And then typically the crowd isn't lit, and there's very few places where you can make like um not photos that aren't on stage. It's tough to shoot crowds. At that club, every once in a while, like they have a floodlight that'll click on, and I have to be like, "Oh shit!" and I have to like swing and turn, and then flip all my like settings and change the ISO and change the shutter speed, and then like sometimes by the time I get all my settings changed, it's like off, and then it's like back to the thing on stage. So there's a lot of like chaos with the lights. Um, I shoot plenty of things where there's chaos with what's in front of me. I cover hurricanes and riots, so like that's nothing. But in terms of just really really challenging low lights, not a lot of space to work with, and like I said, that's like one of the tools that I love to use is space. Um, and now as I get older, by the time the shows come along, I just want to go to bed.
I know that way better than I would like.
And I run a decent amount. I've always run, I guess, off and on, but I've always kind of run. And here in South Carolina, I don't do that after 8 a.m. in the summer. And so like this time of year, it's like I could go. There's something going on at night that I'm not really interested in, but I might go to like I'll just swing by and see my friends that are working because my friends all still work there. They either worked there when I worked there or they became my friends because I was there all the time. Whether I was working on it during the project, because I was when I was working on this project, I was there all the time. And there was one employee who um like didn't realize what I was doing and why I was there so often. And after it all came out, she was like, "Oh, that's why you were here like every night." Because like now it's like I'm there off and on. Um, and that's the beauty of not working at the club anymore is that like when I want to dive in and be there all the time, I can. Um, and when I don't have time for it or when it's not in my mood to be going out or my energy levels, like I don't have to. Although now it's also like a few more miles away. It's like it was a 90-second bike ride away and now it's a 10 to 15-minute car ride, which is still like really, really nice as somebody who likes to go out and see live music, especially at a place that I can walk in, unannounced and not have to get a ticket for. I can't complain about that at all. So, but I'm very cyclical and like I'm here all the time or I'm off doing other projects because that's kind of how it has to work. Like with a lot of the stuff that I do, you just have to like really dive into that thing. Um, in the process though, in the new place, I convinced them to put up a track to hang art. And so I have really, really large prints from the zine. I have about 10 of them up in the downstairs part of the new venue. And before it was just brick wall, and then Mike, the owner, was like, "Yeah, we want to do more of that." So I think I might even have like a little like home gallery now. And it's the new venue space is it's the heart of the campus bar district. It's walking distance from University of South Carolina. It's like 2 blocks from where I went to shows when I was in college, when I was walking from my dorm. And so you've got like recently house sound engineer shared a video, and it was like University of South Carolina frat dudes meet the hardcore scene. It's like, oh, it's like a funny like video of like these dudes who stumbled in, to the club, and I don't know if they were frat dudes, but they were 20 something dudes, not dressed or not looking like they were part of the scene, but like they're checking it out and trying to see how it works, and they end up dancing and getting in, and it looked like they were having fun. And um, you know, the opportunity for that place to introduce people to something new is really awesome, and the opportunity to have some photos up and show people that come downstairs what it might be like, because the new place, it's huge. It's two levels. There's also like a mezzanine, and so before you even get to the showroom, you have to like walk through the club, and you can go to a bar downstairs and never go to the showroom. So you might walk into the bar downstairs and not know anything really about it being a venue, but there's a marquee up there now, like they got a place to put the band names up. It's the old theater in the college bar district. So it's a really like cool spot that can introduce young people, people that are just walking by. The previous location was it didn't have any walk by traffic. No one was going to accidentally stumble there. Like you went there because you knew about it. Whereas this is a place that has the opportunity to um, introduce what probably all of us really, really love and enjoy, what we're here talking about, and what's brought us together. Um, it brings those people into that possible realm of community.
Amazing stuff. Just as we actually now wind it up, I did want to ask you about the 2 photos behind you. Very cool to see your mini passes and your camera stuff there on the shelf. But what are those 2 shots that are hanging behind you?
So, about for a while, I photographed South Carolina, University of South Carolina football for the Associated Press, and about 2 years before I
Classy.
started, before 2 years before I started doing that, um, I've always tackled personal projects. It's always what's propelled me. Um, I encourage it for anyone in the creative arts. Just because someone's not paying you or assigning you to do some creative project doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing it. So I wanted to do a book. I had done one photo book before. I made 10 copies of it, sold like 7, but I did it. And then I had an idea. I was like, I want to do another photo book. And it's like, well, what do you do a photo book on in Columbia, South Carolina? And it's like, well, I'm university grad. I'll just go out and like photograph outside the stadium. Like I'm a big,
I
um,
love I love that.
I'm a big fan of photographers who have encouraged people to turn around. In photojournalism, that happens. A lot of great photographers, they encourage young photojournalists, like, you know, the band's playing on stage, but turn around and photograph the crowd. Like that's probably that's going to be a shot that other people weren't getting, and it's going to show something else and probably be more intriguing. And so I've always been intrigued by that type of thing. And so I spent that was when Steve Spurrier was coach, so that was when they were good. Um, and I went to every
It
home
must be
game.
nice having have had good football for more
It
than 3 seasons.
it only happened um with Steve Spurrier.
I'm 48. In St. Louis, we've had 3 good football seasons. That's it. 48.
Well, I mean, next year.
Next year for who?
I guess not St.
Hopefully,
Louis.
hopefully the Battlehawks will win the UFL championship, which is being held in St. Louis, which nobody cares about, but some of us.
Only you.
I
So yeah,
care hard.
those are two photos from that project. That's the one that's right behind my head right now. Is a baton twirler and the band kind of behind her, and the baton up in the air. And then the one on the other side is just like probably drunk college kids like rushing to the gate, reflected in a puddle from the night before. I still have a few copies of that book. I think sold like I did like a Kickstarter and sold like 75 or 80, I think. I rode my bicycle down to the stadium each time because traffic. If you've ever been to like a big football game, you know it's a pain in the ass. So it was
Yeah,
like,
I have tickets to see the Stones at Soldier Field next month.
okay, then there you
I am
go.
looking forward to the show, not the leaving.
Yeah. So I would just kind of sneak in on my bicycle, and by the time the game started, I would ride back to my house and watch the game on TV. And then I think 2 years later, I was back on the sideline, making photos of the game, and I'm not shooting football anymore. Hurricanes have kind of taken me away from that.
Wait, the Carolina Hurricanes are like different hurricanes.
Literal hurricanes. That's kind of
Oh, that's less
that's
cool.
that's probably I guess my real niche.
Oh, so they like didn't almost kill you. You just chose to go photograph them instead. That's awesome.
It's
I
it's
misunderstood.
it's much more rewarding than photographing college football games,
You
and it
sound
pays a lot
very
better.
Midwestern all of a sudden. The stereotype of the Midwestern dad watching the tornado from his porch.
Okay.
Look, on Sunday we like left the house. Wife's like, "There's tornadoes." I'm like, "It's fine. It's fine.
Y'all are
I've
crazy.
never been hit by a tornado. It's fine."
Sir, you are crazy.
We had 21 inches of rain in a 28-hour period in my city, and that was the start of me getting into that crazy weather world because
If we
my
had that much rain, we wouldn't be able to see the statues on the riverbank.
it
Although
was insane.
although I will say it's only been about 5 or 6 years ago that I learned that we had statues on the riverbank.
Mhm.
Because whenever I go there, I just see water.
Fair enough. Hey, Sean. First of all, I'm sure your weather coverage is actually helping people, and maybe will alert people that they need to take when you show photos of natural disasters. The effect is it affects people. Like, oh, I should get out of here the next time that comes near me. It seems like you seem like a great dude. I want to personally thank you for reaching out to Nick and vis-a-vis me so we could have you on the show today. This has really been rewarding for me to hear about everything. Everything you did with this shows how much you love this and how much you care. Even I want to point out the stamp, the Angry Whale stamp on the back of the cardboard here on the do not bend on this beautiful thing. And we're going to link everything in the description where people can find you. If you come up with anything else and we can help support it, please let us know. And if you ever want to go back and shoot a music show and you need help with a contact or something, hit me up. Maybe I can help. And yeah, man, just thank you so much for everything you do. We love pockets of people who are helping do things and make things and benefit other people. So you fall into that category.
I
welcome.
don't
Thank
know
you.
if I said this, but what I loved the photography in this book because you captured not like the Kodak moments, not the oh my God, look at me rock star poses, but you just captured these wonderful, delicious moments in the history of a club and love them, loved it. Your photographic eye is unassailable.
Thank
And
you.
I will reiterate what my partner Keefy said. Thank you for reaching out because this has been a wonderful education for me, and I appreciate that.
Alrighty. And on that note, I will take us home. Thanks again, Sean. You rule.
Take us home, baby.
Yeah, you've been listening to the Glacially Musical Podcast, the Ghost Cult joint, as we say. I am Ghost Cult Keefy, at Ghost Cult Mag, at Ghost Cult Keefy on all the socials, at ghostcultmag.com. You know our host, Nick Cameron. You know where he's on all the socials, Glacially Musical Podcast, etc. If you're listening, if you're new, if you found us because of Sean, that's cool. And feel free to like and subscribe or follow us on YouTube.
And you're awesome.
And he is awesome. And follow all of Sean's things will be linked in the description where you can buy the zine and follow his work and support him, and maybe he'll, talk about some stuff he's got going on social media. Maybe, maybe not. Social media is kind of terrible now. But as we say every week in this juncture of the show, this is the Glacially Musical Podcast. It does not play in Peoria, but Nick will undoubtedly pass by Peoria on his way to Chicago to see the Rolling Stones this summer.
That is incorrect. I'm stopping in Peoria.
He's going to stop
and
in
playing.
Peoria.
I'm going to stop and play in Peoria.
And then
literally.
we're going to have to change this tagline because it's not going to be applicable anymore.
It will still be applicable.